The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Action Day webinar. My name is Amal Maruki. I am going to show my screen and we can get started. I see a lot of people are on. Just to do a sound check, if you're having any issues, please raise your hand and I will be sure to address it. So without further ado, let's get started. So, welcome to the Action Day webinar again. My name is Amal Maruki. I am the Director of Legislative Affairs for AIA Pennsylvania, and I am very excited to be speaking with all of you and really excited to talk about Action Day and Advocacy 101 and all the cool things that we have planned for April 17th. Just some housekeeping. We will be giving continuing education for this webinar, so make sure that you stay on and that you fill the survey out at the end of the webinar so that you can get your credit. So, what we are going to talk about today, let me see if I can get my, there we go, our agenda for today. We're going to talk a little bit about AIA Pennsylvania and its history and how AIPA works alongside AIA National and our local chapters, a crash course in the political process for some of the new people that have not participated before, our goals for Action Day and what we are hoping to achieve through having Architects Action Day. Advocacy 101, which is actually a tool that came out of AIA National's Advocacy Toolkit that I think would be a really, really great resource for all of you on this webinar today. Our Action Day visits, what you're going to do, what to expect, and our issues. So what we'll be advocating for on the 17th, and then we should have some time for Q&A. So let's get started. AIA Pennsylvania. I have a poll for you as well, so for engagement so that everybody doesn't get bored, so bear with me. Can you tell me the difference between AIA National, AIA Pennsylvania, and your local chapter and what they individually do for you? So that poll is open. If you could please just let me know, yes, of course I know the difference, or no, not really, but I'm curious. How does AIA Pennsylvania relate to the other components? So we're still accepting some responses. And I'm going to give everyone about 10 more seconds before we close that. Oh, 50-50, we're good. So this is actually split 50-50. We have 50% that, of course, know what AIA Pennsylvania does, and the other 50, no, not really. So that's really great. I'm really excited to tell you all about it. AIA Pennsylvania is the statewide component of AIA. We represent nearly 3,000 members across the state, and we advocate on behalf of those members to the public and the legislature. So that's something unique to AIA Pennsylvania. It's not something that AIA National does or that the local chapters do. We are your voice at the state capitol for issues pertaining to the practice of architecture. We are governed by a board of directors representing 8 local components. This map up here in the right corner shows all of the different AIA local chapters. So your local chapters, you might go there for continuing education, for networking, for a lot of really, really great things. But AIA Pennsylvania is different in that we are doing all the statewide advocacy for the state. We have a staff of 4. All of our lovely headshots are there. Steve Swarney is our executive director. Amal Maruki, that's me. I'm the director of legislative affairs. Olivia Perry is our manager of communications, and Megan Baird is our membership coordinator. If you have any other questions on AIA Pennsylvania as an organization, or what we do for you, or where your state dues go, send me an email. We'll be happy to chat about it. Our mission at AIA Pennsylvania is, again, unique to us in representing, serving, and communicating the interests of our local chapters and individuals and individual members, AIA Pennsylvania promotes the profession of architecture throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania while striving for the highest quality in the built environment. And our primary strategic goal is to protect and enhance a state legal and regulatory framework that fosters high quality, sustainable development and is favorable to the architecture profession. So I think that it was really important to put these in here for this webinar because Action Day serves our mission and it serves our primary strategic goal, which is striving for the highest quality built environment and to create a framework that fosters quality, sustainable design. A little bit about our Government Affairs Committee and how we come up with our policies. It is not me sitting here on 3rd Street in Harrisburg saying, oh, hey, here's what architects should advocate for. This is our structure. We have a Government Affairs Committee, and within that Government Affairs Committee are subcommittees that are focused on specific topics. We have a Building Code Subcommittee, an Education School Construction Subcommittee, a Subcommittee on the Environment, a DGS and Procurement Working Group, an Interior Design Task Force, a Legal Reform Task Force, a Licensure Task Force, and a P3 Task Force. And then we also have our Pennsylvania Legislative Network, which is a grassroots network that we can talk about a little bit in the future. So we do a legislative survey in the beginning of the session, the legislative session to your legislative session for our members, so that we can find the issues that are important to them. And that's what makes up our legislative priorities. So moving on. AIA Pennsylvania uses grassroots and advocacy as tools to achieve our goals and to fulfill our mission and our strategic goal. That is why all of you attending Action Day and getting to know your legislators and being comfortable speaking with them is so important, whether it's here in Harrisburg or at home in the district. So advocacy is the public support for or recommendation of a particular cause or policy. And grassroots uses the people in a given district as the basis for a political or economic movement. Grassroots movements and organizations utilize collective action from the local level to affect change at the local, regional, national, or international level. So grassroots movements are bottom up rather than top down decision making. So every person, cause, and business has a story to tell, and there is strength in our numbers. In addition to advocacy and grassroots as tools, AIA Pennsylvania uses lobbying as a tool. Lobbying is a tool that we use to make legislators know what is important and vital to the members of this organization. So I am the Director of Legislative Affairs, and I lobby on behalf of AIA Pennsylvania and the members, that is you. This is completely legal. We follow all lobbying disclosure laws, and not only is it legal, but it's important and vital for the profession and health, safety, and welfare of the public. I put this little graphic on here because I think that it's funny sometimes when you catch in passing, oh, you know, lobbyists, that's what's wrong with our government, that's what's wrong with Harrisburg. But I think that there's a lot of importance in lobbying and in advocating for your profession and having someone that is at the Capitol on a regular basis that is supporting your issues in the legislature. Another tool that we use is the PA Architects PAC. So a strong PAC is a good way to build influence at the state level. And it is imperative to support legislators and candidates that support us and our issues. PACs are an important tool for building relationships between architects and legislators, and we want to support the legislators that support our issues. So this is just another touch point and another opportunity to get in front of people that are making policies that impact architects every day. So we want to make AIA Pennsylvania election proof, and the PA Architects PAC helps us do that. We're doing something fun with our PAC that is going to be launching on April 17th. We are going to be doing a PAC ping contest. We did this in 2016 for 2017-2018 legislative session. Submissions will open on the 17th and they will close on September 30th. And the pin that wins the contest will be the pin that AIA Pennsylvania Architects PAC donors wear for the next 2 years. So please consider submitting your design for that pack pin contest. Everyone still doing okay? All right. So next, let's talk about the political process. And I have some more polls for you to keep you engaged. I would like to know how many of you know who your local legislators are. So can you name your state representative and your state senator? So collecting responses, we'll give you guys a couple minutes. All right. I don't know if someone else is not on mute, but if you can mute yourself, that'd be great. I'm going to close this poll. And I'm going to share the response with you. So 80% of you, that's great. Yes, of course, I can name my local representative and senator. 20%, nope, but you're Googling them now. That's good. That's a step in the right direction, and now you're going to know who they are. Next question that I have is how many of you have met with your state rep or senator before? So there are a couple different answers to this. I'm going to give you some time. So yes, I've met them at a past action day. Yes, I've met them at district. Yes, I've met them at a fundraiser, or no, I haven't, but I'm going to meet them at action day this year, or you're going to after this webinar. Give you guys a couple more minutes, not minutes, but seconds. All right. So it looks like 41% have met their legislators at a past action day. That's great. 24% in the district and 24% not yet, but you'll meet them at action day this year. So that's really exciting. And one person might not be attending action day, but you are going to meet them after this webinar. So that's exciting. For the people that do know their legislators, one final poll on this page, how many of you would feel comfortable with calling your legislator right now just to catch up? So some of you might be best friends with your legislator, you're on a first name basis, or somebody else might not have that relationship yet, but might be working on fostering that. All right, give you a couple more seconds. Looks like everyone has filled this out. I'm going to share it. So the 35% that said yes to your BFFs with your representatives and senators, you will be on my list. The 65%, I hope that this webinar helps you to be more apt to call them. A lot of people do not want to engage with their legislators on such a personal level because of the stigma of the legislators, but they're not celebrities. They're there to serve you, and it is vital and important that you have a good relationship with them. So before we move on, I see some hands raised. Let me just go in here and make sure that everyone's okay, and we will move on. All right, thanks, Adam. All right, so political process. This is going to be a little crash course in the political process in Pennsylvania. We want to always remember that all politics is local, and remember that when we discuss the definition of grassroots and why we use grassroots advocacy as a tool at AI Pennsylvania. So we have the governor and his administration. The governor serves a 4-year term, and his administration includes secretaries of departments like Department of Education, Department of Labor and Industry, Department of General Services. Those are 3 departments that we work with very closely. So that's all part of the governor's administration. Next is our Pennsylvania General Assembly. We have 50 senators. They serve 4-year terms. We have 203 representatives. They serve 2-year terms. And we do have a majority and a minority party in Pennsylvania. Currently, Republicans are the majority and Democrats are the minority. And we are a bipartisan or nonpartisan organization. So we have really good friends on both sides of the aisles. And we have 253 members that AIA Pennsylvania wants to be close with. So With that said, the legislative process, this is basic civics again, legislative process. A bill introduced in the Senate or a House, it is referred to a committee. A hearing is held. The House committee votes on the bill. It then goes to the House of Representatives, and then it'll go over to the Senate and go through the same process. If a bill passes both chambers, it is then sent to the governor's desk, and hopefully, if it's a good bill, the governor will sign it. If not, he will veto it, and then it has to either go back to the House for a 2/3 majority vote, or that's usually where a bill dies. Next, advocacy. So we talked about this a little bit in the beginning. Advocacy comes into play with all 253 legislators and the governor and his administration. We're using advocacy to make sure that your voice and the voice of your profession is heard. The administration and legislators want to hear from you. And then also grassroots. Again, all 250 legislators and the governor can be reached via our grassroots efforts, starting at the local level. Grassroots is important because legislators depend on their constituents to let them know how policy affects their local community. Through local constituent letters, phone calls, face-to-face meetings, legislators learn what's important to the people back home. And greater influence and impact is gained when large numbers of constituents speak with one voice. So if any of you have ever had an issue locally, went and talked to your city council, your borough council about it, same idea, just at a state level. So this is what we're doing with Action Day, which is a nice segue into Architects Action Day. I think this is the last poll that I have for you. So my last poll is have you attended Architects Action Day before? So that poll is open. Let me know if you have come to Action Day every day since you've been an AIA member, if you've gone a couple years ago, or if this is your first time. All right. Looks like everyone has filled out the survey. I'm going to close it. I'm going to share the results. So the majority of you have religiously attended Architects Action Day. Thank you. Some of you are coming back, so thank you for that. And 35%, this is your first time and you're super excited. I didn't mean to put words in your mouth, but I know that you're excited to come and hang out with us. So good. Well, then that gives me a sense of what to focus on as we go through this section of the webinar. So Architects Action Day. Here are all the wonderful people that attended Architects Action Day in 2017, and it was super fun. Everyone here had a really good time, and there were actually some really tangible things that happened after Architects Action Day last year that we are couching as wins for AIA Pennsylvania. So there are tangible results that come out of Architects Action Day and why it's so important. I will get into those later on. Here's a tentative schedule for the day. It's not too tentative. There are some things that we need to plug in, that building tour. We start at 8 a.m. at AIA Pennsylvania headquarters. We will do a crash course on the issues. For all of you that are on this webinar, you have your issue briefs. They are in the handout portion of the webinar, so you can download those via handouts, but it'll be a crash course for everyone. Every year we try and get a picture on the Capitol steps of everyone that is attending Action Day. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. We're going to try really hard this year to get a picture because it's really good to document all this. From 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., you will be scheduled for legislative visits and drop-offs. I put 12 p.m., lunch on your own between meetings. Everybody has different schedules within their groups, and you'll see when we start talking about that a little bit more. So it's really grab food when you can. Building tour is tentative. We were hoping to do the PHFA building. That is not going to come to fruition, so we're working on getting a building tour somewhere on the Capitol campus. And then we're going to come back for a debrief at 3:30 to talk about everyone's takeaways and how Action Day impacted them or who we need to follow up with, so on and so forth. Our goals for Architects Action Day. We want to promote the profession. We are the voice of the construction industry, and one thing that we want to make evident is that if there is any legislation or policy that is introduced that regards construction in the Commonwealth, that the architects are included as a stakeholder in that legislation, and that they're coming to AIA Pennsylvania and its members for input on anything that would impact the built industry. So that's one of our goals. Second goal, to build relationships with legislators and staffers. Staffers are just as important as legislators. They are the go-tos for all of these legislators. They're who they rely on for good intel to help them as they do their job in serving their constituents. We want to establish AIA Pennsylvania as a resource, and we want to advocate for our issues. I'm going to stick on that for a second. We want to make sure that we're sticking to AIA Pennsylvania issues and talking about yourself and what you do in the context of being a student, an emerging professional, or a registered architect. And we want to make sure that we're staying away from personal politics. We want to stick to AIA Pennsylvania issues. And lastly, we want to have fun. So I am going to move on now that you know what our goals are for Action Day. To Advocacy 101. These are just some general advocacy tools that I think everybody should be able to benefit from, even if you are veterans, which I know a lot of you are based on the polls. These are some good tools to remember and just to be reminded of. Okay. So, advocacy. The things that we are going to be advocating for is health, safety, and welfare. That is what guides a lot of the things that we do at AIA Pennsylvania and a lot of the policies that our members look at and believe are vital. We look at the health, safety, and welfare of the public. So it is the architect's duty to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. Governments create laws regarding health, safety, and welfare issues, so we want to make sure that we are weighing in on those issues. And if we do not inform, guide, and educate lawmakers, their quote-unquote good intentions or their connections with other special interests may actually reduce protections for the public. There are a lot of good intentions that are ill-informed, so we can get into that offline. We also advocate for practice issues. The government regulates control of taxes, of insurance, and rules and regulations for small businesses. We have a vast majority of our membership that are owners of small firms, so we do look at small business issues as well. This is the big question. Do elected officials want to hear from architects? Yes, they do. Time and time again, elected leaders tell us they want to hear from educated, trained, practicing professionals in every discipline because it helps them do their job. They are elected to represent constituents, and it is imperative that they understand where their constituents are. But what makes you special as the architect is that you are the expert. Again, I know you're the expert, you know you're the expert, but we want to make sure that the legislators know that you are the expert on these issues. You have information that is useful in their decision-making process. You are a reliable and trusted source. Continuing, yes, they want to hear from you. You're a constituent, and elected officials need to represent those who elected them into office. As a constituent, you are a member of their community, and your engagement in your community and your relationships to the people in those communities, like your business contacts, your family, your friends, and your neighbors, that elevates your importance for the legislators. You bolster and help them explain their position to other constituents. A lot of times, legislators will take the information that they get from these meetings or from their staff that attended these meetings and use those when they go into caucus on specific issues. So it really helps them. The more educated they are, the better they are at doing their job. You are on the ground floor and you know what's going on. That's self-explanatory. So, what's in it for you? Why should you be advocating? I think the majority of the people on this webinar, I'm preaching to the choir. But if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. That's one of Steve's favorite quotes, and I hear it a lot, but I think that it resonates. So, what's in it for you? Decisions made at the local, state, and federal level overlap with all aspects of our profession, our collective profession, meaning architecture, including design excellence, solar energy, taxes, liability, like statute of repose, building codes, which we just got passed, sustainability, which we're working on, energy efficiency, resiliency, and the list goes on. Continuing what's in it for you, all politics is local. This is your home, and your firm is within this district, so it is important to you. Advocacy is public service. It helps you and it helps others. It builds your skills, builds public speaking skills, negotiating skills, relationship building skills, communicating skills, listening skills, holding your tongue skills. All these skills you can acquire through advocacy. And the other one on here is other architects have advocated before you. This organization has been around since 1909, so it's important to do the same and to pay it forward. This is the last one on what's in it for you. One thing leads to another. Involvement will lead to new opportunities and new relationships, resulting in stronger relationships and a stronger community. A stronger profession where architects become subject matter experts on the built environment. Again, you know that you're the expert. We know that you're the expert, and now it's time to let all the legislators know that you are the experts on the built environment. Everyone still doing okay? I see some hands raised. If you have questions or if you're having issues, just type them into the question or the chat box, and I will try to address them as we take these breaks. So, legislative visits. I know that everyone's really excited to speak to their legislators. What we want to do is we want to build strong relationships with your elected leaders. And building strong relationships takes time, and it takes a multi-pronged approach. We want you to meet with your legislators. We want you to invite legislators to visit you in your office. Show them where you live. Show them where you work. Show them what you do. That's very important for them to understand the vast amount of things that you do in your offices. Invite your legislators to tour projects. They love photo opportunities, so any opportunity that they have to get out and be somewhere in their district, they would love. I'm sure that they would attend if they get the invite. Get to know their legislative staff. Again, they're the people that are going to be advising their boss on policies. Be prepared, accurate, and honest. Follow through with information sharing is critical. So if a legislator asks you to follow up on something, please be sure to let me know or to follow up with them and copy me on the email. Take the long view. Building relationships takes time, as I mentioned before. You're not just going to become best friends at Action Day. You're going to have to go home, back to the district, make sure that you visit them, make sure that you call them when you have a concern. And please maintain a sense of humor. It is vital. Advice for advocates. When you walk into these meetings, you want to be sure that you introduce yourself. Talk to their staff, chat them up, let them know why you're there, what AI Pennsylvania does, how many people are there. Let them know if you are a constituent. Some of you that are in these meetings will not be constituents, but there will be a constituent in your group. Make sure that you leave a business card so that if something piques their interest, they want to follow up with it 3 months down the road, they have your contact information. Tell them what you do and what AI Pennsylvania does. You want to make sure that you're promoting the profession of architecture. Offer AI Pennsylvania as a resource anytime they have questions about the construction industry, and be sure to say thank you. Getting into the details of these legislative visits, each person is going to be assigned to a team. And each team will have several office visits and drop-offs. So here is an outline of the schedule. This is what you will be getting in your inbox. This has about 5 architects here. So here are all the legislative visits that will be scheduled for you. And there'll be little notes here of different things that you should touch on for each of these representatives or senators. For example, Representative Harris sits on the House Professional Licensure Committee, so you want to make sure that you're talking about House Bill 223, which is our mandatory continuing education bill. Same thing with Senator Farnese in the Senate. So, capital maps and issue briefs will be provided, and you will be responsible for speaking about the issues and providing our issue briefs and establishing future relationships. So far, we have 40 members registered and we have 36 meetings scheduled. And I know that architects are last minute, so I'm sure that we will be getting a bunch of other registrations before the end of the week. But this is an idea of what you will be looking at. Additionally, these are drop-offs. So in between the Senator Greenleaf meeting and the Senator Hughes meeting, there's a significant amount of time. We're going to try not to have 4:30 meetings for you guys too. But these drop-offs, you can do those in between these meetings. We want to make sure that every one of the 253 legislators has our issue briefs. So it's really important that those drop-offs are done. What to expect? As I mentioned before, the legislator may not be able to attend the meeting and you might be meeting with staff, but staff is just as important as the legislator and they might know the issues better and they will be the ones advising the legislators when they make their votes. Expect the legislators and staff generally to know very little about our issues, even if they have heard them before. They're living moment to moment up there, so you are the subject expert. Let them know what our issues are. Explain the issues, but keep it brief. You want to try and keep your pitch to like 30 seconds, a minute for each one of our issue briefs, and we'll get into that when we get into our issue brief section. But if they have a question and you don't know the answer, tell them that you will research it and follow up with them. And then either do that or let me know and I will make sure that they are followed up with. And just keep in mind that this is an extremely busy day. I think that there are like 5 other groups that are having their lobby day on the same day. So just bear that in mind. Additional tips, we already went over this, but make sure that you're introducing yourself. Tell the legislator who you are, where you're from, what you do, and that you are an AIA member. Don't assume that they know any of this. You want to make sure that you're being flexible and being polite. A lot of the times schedules change quickly. They might only be able to meet with you for 3 minutes. You might be interrupted, but just make sure that you're maintaining your flexibility and you're being polite regardless of your personal opinion. You do want to make it personal, however. You are the expert on the design industry, and you should utilize this opportunity to educate your elected officials about the needs and concerns of the industry. Legislators want to know how a specific issue will affect them in their district, so use a personal or local experience to emphasize your points. Again, we talked about this with grassroots. Some more additional tips. Set the expectation for future interaction. Hey, I'm meeting you here on Action Day. Would love to chat with you in the district. You want to make sure that you're saying thank you. Again, you want to follow up after your meeting. We do have scripts to follow up with your legislator, but just make sure that you recap everything that you talked about in your meeting. And lastly, we want to make sure that you are having fun. This is a really, really enjoyable time. So make sure that you're having fun. Now that we're through the do's, let's go to the please don'ts. Please don't feel slighted. You might have to meet with staff again. Some of you will be meeting with staff or they might have 3 minutes to talk, but do not take it personal. Take those 3 minutes and use them to your advantage. Don't feel like you need to know anything. If someone asks a question and you don't know the answer, I don't know is the answer. Offer to have AIA Pennsylvania staff follow up with the requested information, but don't make up answers or feel like you need to have an answer to every question that they ask. And don't miss the opportunity. This is an opportunity for you to share your story as an architect, as an AIA Pennsylvania member, and you're the one that the legislator wants to hear from. Lastly, and this is in red, don't talk about money because it's illegal. Keep fundraising and campaign conversations separate. Have those back in the district outside of the member's office, and do not mention the Pennsylvania Architects PAC anywhere on the Capitol grounds. Moving on, I want to thank you all for, number one, being on this webinar, for attending our lobby day and with meeting with your legislators, because again, it is absolutely vital to architects. and to AI Pennsylvania and the profession. No one knows the issues like you do, and the legislators want to hear from you because you are the experts. There's no better advocate for the profession than you. So, moving on to the issue briefs. A lot of you were asking for specific issue briefs and what we can talk about. So, or what we're going to be talking about. So, your issue briefs are in your handouts, so you can download those now, but I'm going to go through them, and again, we're saving all questions for the end, but I'd be happy to answer any issue-specific questions or any questions on any of this. So, issue briefs. Our first issue is mandatory continuing education, my favorite. Right now, we have two mandatory continuing education bills. House Bill 223 is the one that we are pushing. Pennsylvania is one of 5 states that does not require mandatory continuing education for architects. Architects are one of the only licensed professionals without a mandatory continuing education requirement in Pennsylvania, and we support this legislation running clean. All of that information I got right here in the left margin of the issue brief. So anything that the legislator is going to ask you, who's your lobbyist? Your lobbyist is Alma Maruki. What are the bills? Who's sponsoring those bills? You have House Bill 223, Representative Sunny, Senate Bill 432, Rafferty. And here is the 30-second pitch for this issue. This is House Bill 223, and this is the way that all of our issue briefs will be set up. We want to make sure that we let everyone know that this bill would establish mandatory continuing education for architects in the Commonwealth. It will help with reciprocity, and we want to make sure that non-AIA members are completing continuing education as well. Next, just to give you an idea of where this bill is in the process, this bill got the whole way through this House process and is currently in the Senate committee. So this bill just needs to get through Senate committee and through a Senate vote before it goes to the governor. So we are going to be pushing very, very hard for this bill. We've been working on this bill for a lot longer than I've been here, probably over 10 years. So mandatory continuing education is issue number 1. Next issue is school safety and construction. So when I showed you our government affairs committee structure and subcommittee structure, we do have a lot of subject matter experts in the K through 12 arena. Some of them will be getting specific issue briefs that not everyone else is going to get because they know those issues very intimately. But everybody is going to be getting a school safety issue brief. Safer schools by design. So as a professional organization that represents architects, we do not have all the answers to solving the problems of violence and terrorism in our schools, but one thing that we can provide is our voice as designers, creative thinkers, and guardians of the public health, safety, and welfare. In March, AIA Pennsylvania did provide testimony to the Senate Education Committee, and we testified at the House Education Committee on this specific subject. So this is one of our members here testifying at the committee. There are a lot of bills out there that want to address school safety. Some of them want to fold it into the PlanCon process, which is the next slide. But there is also a school safety task force that Governor Wolf and Auditor General DePasquale are heading. And we do have a meeting scheduled with them to discuss this issue as well. So that's one of the other issues.
Muted. Unmuted.
Moving on to school construction, PlanCon has been an issue that we have been advocating for, which we want to ensure that there are state funds allocated to fund school construction in the Commonwealth. In 2016, there was a PlanCon advisory committee that was established that would look at PlanCon and essentially rewrite it. They are overdue on their report, but we want to make sure that they're still coming to AIA Pennsylvania as a resource. Some of you do have meetings with members that are on this advisory committee, so just want to make sure that you are aware that we are continuing to advocate for funding for school construction. In addition to this, there is a high performance schools issue brief that's going to be separate, but included in your packet. That's something that went directly to this committee, and it's also something that we're advocating for. Next is statute of repose. Our legal reform subcommittee is looking to reduce the statute of repose from 12 years to 6 years, and that is an initiative of AIA Pennsylvania that we talked about at the subcommittee level, and we were able to have a bill introduced. So Senate Bill 954 was introduced by Senator Wagner, and that would reduce the statute of repose from 12 years to 6 years in Pennsylvania. Currently, this bill is pretty early on in the process. So since this was a Senate bill, it started in the Senate, it's in Senate committee, needs to get the whole way through the Senate process and the House process before it gets over to the governor's desk. The session ends at the end of this year, so we are on a tight timeline to get this done, but it's something that is important for us to be advocating for. Again, you have all of your basic information right here. This is a really quick read for this issue brief if you're not familiar with it, or with the issue or the statute of repose. So throw some attention at that one as well. Next is high performance buildings. There's one specific bill that has gotten very far as it relates to high performance buildings that we are going to be advocating for specifically, in addition to high performing buildings generally. AIA Pennsylvania promotes energy efficient and environmental standards for construction to optimize the performance of buildings in the Commonwealth, increase jobs, and save money over the life cycle of the building. Senate Bill 234, which would establish commercial property assessed clean energy financing. It's a tool for businesses to invest in cost-saving energy efficiency projects, which creates jobs, lowers operating costs, and improves property values. For local governments, CPACE programs are voluntary and do not require any public funds. Currently, this Senate bill has made it the whole way to the House committee, and then it will go to a vote by the House. There is a hearing scheduled for April 18th, the day after Action Day, so hopefully it will be voted out of committee that week. Next is student loan forgiveness. This is one that I think our emerging professionals and our students will be very interested in. We want to see recent architectural graduates that are providing pro bono services to improve blighted communities and are seeking assistance with their burdensome student loan debt. We want to see some of their state loans reduced or forgiven for their assistance in these underserved communities. So we did a press conference on this in 2016. The bill was reintroduced as Senate Bill 459, and that is in the Senate committee. We are still waiting on that. Next is Separations Act reform. AIA Pennsylvania held a debate on the Separations Act last year, and we have joined a coalition for Separations Act reform. We do not have an issue brief on this, but what we will be including in the packet is a coalition letter. You don't really need to talk about this, but we want to make sure that every legislator gets a copy of this letter that AIA Pennsylvania has contributed to. We do have the AIA Pennsylvania debate on YouTube. Currently has 4 views. So if you're interested in that, please check it out. Lastly, we are looking into historic preservation tax credits at the state level. An issue brief will be forthcoming on that, but that is something that we are interested in advocating for. And lastly, on some of our active issues is diversity and inclusion. AIA nationally has committed themselves to broadening equity, diversity, and inclusion to create a stronger profession. We have reached out to NOMA Philadelphia and NOMA Pittsburgh, and we are hoping to have a resolution introduced on the efforts of AIA Pennsylvania to increase diversity and inclusion within the AEC profession in Pennsylvania. So that is also forthcoming. Hopefully it will be able to be introduced on the 17th. The last thing that I want to talk about before we move on to Q&A is our 2017 wins. There are two things that are not on this list that were last year. The reason that they're not on this list is because the bills that we were advocating for got passed. So those are House Bill 409, which created Act 36 of 2017, which allowed the RAC to re-review the 2015 I-codes. And I can tell everyone on this webinar that as of yesterday, the RAC voted to adopt 2015 commercial codes in Pennsylvania with very few exceptions or modifications. So that's something that was a direct result of our advocacy efforts. The other was House Bill 118, which established Act 40 of 2017, which closed the PJM borders and strengthened our opportunities for renewable energy in Pennsylvania. The other thing that happened right after Action Day was that our mandatory continuing education bill got a vote in that House committee, which is what put it through to the House floor and then to the Senate. So that was a direct result of our action on Action Day. So with that said, I am going to open this up for Q&A. If you would like to type your questions into the question box, I have it open now, and I will be happy to answer those. So let me just pull this up and give me a second while I read them. Okay, so one of these questions, every representative has approximately 60,000 constituents. When I advocate or make a special appeal to my representative, is there any data that would indicate on average if my special appeal is one loud voice amongst 60,000 loud voices or one loud voice amongst 100 that he or she might hear in a year? It's a really good question. To answer that, a lot of constituents are not actively speaking to their legislators. So harkening back to grassroots and really developing that relationship, if you know them, then you would be maybe one of the 100 that does have a direct contact and that is more applicable to get your question answered or for them to answer when you call. So that is a very, very good question. I can just say that developing the relationship is vital. Next question. Will you send us the issue briefs ahead of time? That is a great question. Yes. The issue briefs are currently in the handouts, so you can download those from the webinar right now. The other thing is that you will be getting an email from me or Olivia or Megan that gives you your group assignment that will also have your schedule for the day, your parking information, and all of the issue briefs or anything that has been updated prior to the 17th. So that's a good question. How should members from Philadelphia and meeting with Philadelphia reps address PlanCon issues and other matters that might be controlled on the local level? It's a good question. Just have the conversation. Let them know what we're talking about at the state level. And if it is different for Philadelphia, like Philadelphia is doing a pilot project for a lot of their schools, bring that information back, start the conversation, and then you can talk to us about it on our debrief, and you might actually be able to give us more information on how we should be approaching the Philadelphia reps and senators on those specific issues. What other professions already have the opportunity for PA for student loan forgiveness? That's a really great question, and I am going to use the answer that I hope that you will in a meeting if you don't know the answer. I do not know all of the professions. I do believe that the dentists are working on it or they have it, but that's a good question, and I can get back to you on that. Do you have a breakdown of what local chapters will be attending Architects Action Day? again, I have the information, but I have not broken it down by local chapter, but I think that it's something that we should do, and I can do that for you. Okay, Brian. So another question was, what about interior designer licensing? We are going to stick to our issue of mandatory continuing education. Again, that is something that, when asked, AIA Pennsylvania does not support, but it's not one of our primary issues. We have a lot of other things that we are going to be focusing on, and a lot of other proactive things that we are looking at to accomplish on our legislative agenda. So it is not something that we support, but we are not actively discussing it in these meetings, and they're not included in our issue briefs. Any other questions? Were there any other questions that I did not address? I'll leave this open for a little while longer. Okay. Well, with that said, we have we're ending at 2:50. So if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to give me a call. Keep your eyes peeled for an email from us. Our registration deadline is April 6th for Action Day. So once everybody has registered, that's when we will compile all of our groups, and everyone will be getting the email with their group assignments. We will connect everyone too, in case everyone wants to get together and have a call and maybe talk about their strategy as a group. So those will be forthcoming after the 6th. And I look forward to seeing all of you at Action Day. And if there are any other questions, I would be happy to answer them. Ooh, and state archives might be a great tour site. I agree. I might look into that. So again, thank you all for attending. This webinar has been recorded. So for anyone that has not attended, that was not able to attend, we will be sending this out along with issue briefs. So thank you all again. I look forward to seeing you all on the 17th. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. You should know where to find me. My email address is amaruki@aiapa.org, and a PDF will be available of the slideshow. All right. Thank you all, and have a great day.